Talk Radio.
This thing right here is for my peoples in the streets.
Yes. Today,
Blog Talk Radio.
the show, this one mic.
Phoenix is another place. They got a great training staff. They were able to breathe life back into Shaq, and you can do that.
Welcome to I'm Mike. We're up and running again. We're dropping a lot lately on the RSG platform. If you haven't had a chance, please go to realsportsguys.com or catch us on social media. We got a lot of stuff dropping here lately. We dropped a big show again. We had Marcus, the game changer, and Phil, PhD, back in the building. A lot of great stuff. You got to check that one out. Obviously, the fellas here have been hot. We're going to have stuff coming out with Inside the Park, boxing moment. I just had a RSG live at the lounge with the Associate Commissioner for Strategic Communication for the Sun Belt Conference, Scotty Rogers, that will be dropping, and you'll love that. Him talking about his journey in the business, but also how they've been navigating life under COVID-19 in the Sun Belt, given that it's a Group of 5 conference with a little different issues than the Power 5 conference. But one of the great things about Scotty is he's also he's a Alabama alum, so he did some work in the SEC, and then he went to the Ivy League and then back, and now he's working with Sun Belt Conference. So he brings I think a great perspective. And so we'll have interviews like that coming. So we just pushing. Everybody else is hunkering down COVID-19. We just putting our head down and working. We've been inspired. There's been a lot of guys here in the group like, look, we're not going to do this. We're going to keep it moving while everybody else is kind of on pause. We doing our thing at RSG. But, before I get into the business at hand, I got to bring my co-host into the building. Let's start with the youngin' down there. He came in. He looked like he just came from choir practice, played the saxophone. We know him as Darnell Kirkland Jr. We want to emphasize the junior, but y'all don't know he's a great musician in the game as well, highly talented. How you doing there?
Man, I'm doing great. Had a great day, man. It's warm as heck outside. It's like it's approaching 80 degrees. It's beautiful outside. Got to get outside, get a good walk in, go to the park, get some shots up. But just enjoying life, enjoying the weather. It's summer. Just can't wait for this stay at home order to be over with. That's about it.
Now I want y'all to understand there's a difference between policy and health. There's a policy. It doesn't necessarily tell you that the health environment is any better. All y'all caught up in this stuff in Michigan, Wisconsin, up there talking about individual rights. This is about health and wellness. But hope they put a bubble around that park you shooting at, just like we're about to talk about in Disneyland. Shoot them shots, but shoot them alone. Don't be down there trying to get your competitive game on, or we might have problems. So. No, good thing. And next on hand is my man. He's a man. From the South Side of Chicago. Educated at Stanford. UW law educated. He brings it all, but that South Side, don't get that South Side because he'll get gutted. Don't get it twisted. When it all comes down to it, he'll reserve back to that South Side attitude. His name is the Hammer, Carl Hampton. What's up, man?
I'm doing well, DeVon. Blessed and well. As Darnell said, it's beautiful outside, but be careful outside. People aren't social distancing. In my neighborhood, unfortunately, I live right near campus, so you all these young folks who think they're, indestructible. But you probably know two of my close friends in Milwaukee got off the ventilator. They're part of the 20% who survived, but I know a lot of other people, family members who have fortunately succumbed to the virus. So this is no joke. The virus is, I call it the invisible devil. And even though, as you said, the safe at home orders will be, in Wisconsin, we got none here. So they stopped in the Supreme Court. But be careful out there. Just because you have a stay at home order that's been overturned or expired, doesn't mean that you're reckless with this virus. So try to get your walks in, but be very careful. That's all. So until we can get a treatment or get a vaccine, help our nation. Yeah. So
this virus is not red or blue. There are no red or blue states when it comes to this virus. This virus is the virus. And so thank you, Hammer, for putting it out. You know, I just learned that we lost a dear friend that, you know, Hank knows from, you know, Chicago, who we used to hang with and bring all the energy. And it just represents a story of the way in which the disparity that happens and how people have to make life decisions and get into situations that make them much more susceptible to this disease, to this virus. So
Chicago's a hotbed right now.
Yeah.
Chicago in the South.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. So
it's unfortunate. And you know, we got the man right now. You know, he's kind of like, you know, he's like our Karl Malone in the post. You know, you put it down there, it's two. It's just we just know. We put him in that screen and roll. He'll pop, pivot. He'll get to the hoop. You know, we call him, man, Big Bang Hank. What's up, man? How you doing, Hank? Hank Davis.
I'm doing well, man. It's always good to see you guys on a Sunday afternoon. You know, and as everyone has echoed, it is beautiful here in Southeast Michigan. And Youngin is a little bit off. It's closer to like 84, 85 today. I mean, it's hot outside. You know, I'm one of those fortunate ones. I was able to fire up the grill, get the ribs going. So I got a little bit of post-meal sleep. I'm trying to fight off. So I'm glad to be able to be with you guys today. But as everyone has echoed, and I cannot emphasize it even more, folks, listen, my virus hasn't gone anywhere. Okay, don't let the smooth taste fool you. Okay, you just can't close your eyes and think it's going to go away. That's not what we're living in right now. Okay, stay safe. You know, if not for yourself, for your loved ones, you know, use a little bit of common sense and a little bit of wisdom. We will get through this. But everybody's going to have to use a little bit more of this right here, a little less of this down here.
All right. Well, here in the open mic, as we go into the open mic, I want to remind you that with our discussion topic, last week we had a chance in our previous podcast, we did a draft, all-time draft for what we would see as a classic game at the St. Cecilia in Detroit, a classic gym, small church gym. You get in there, it's hot. You know, we got my man Alex Polakowski on the lounge, who actually back in the day took a team, some of his Ann Arbor Huron teammates down to the St. To play in the summer. They probably played in that high school league. So we definitely get Alex on to talk about what it was like to play in that environment. This environment I heard about, you know, growing up, but I have a car. I couldn't get down anywhere. I couldn't get to Ypsilanti where Darnell and them living. You know, it was ATA. It was the bus you had to get on, or I had to ride that bike. And so things like that I could only dream about. I could never get to. So I always want to talk to somebody who could be in that environment, contextualize what you need to actually do it. But you haven't had a chance to vote. You got to go over there to RSG Live Lounge, or you can catch on any one of our social media platforms. We have the post up where you can get to it to vote. But we're gonna keep the voting open for a while. It's getting slow, but we'll get the voting open for a while. I've been going back and forth with a couple of people about the teams. You know, they like Hank's team, though. You know, he started.
I like Hank's team.
He got Michael, you know, and then I keep reminding him about my squad and the versatility of it. So, we got.
You can't be on there politicking.
No, I think Hank
is politicking. You got to ask the people what they think. Quit politicking.
Well, look. So you can go to www.facebook.com/group.
Well, he did have the competitive advantage though going first.
Yeah. So you can go to www.facebook.com/
You had 2 picks, youngin. Don't start
hold up, y'all. Let me give them the information where they can go.
Well,
y'all break it up. We'll get to that in a minute. Look at, I'm trying to tell the folks something, and y'all up here messing up. So www.facebook.com/groups/RSG Lounge. I think that's where you can get, or just go to any one of our social media platforms. You'll see the address. Come in there, vote. We love to have you. Now, y'all talking so much right now. Tell you, we still got the debate going. But I want to ask a question, though. You've had a chance for a week to let it sit in a little bit. If you had to look at your team, you had to make a substitution. You take somebody off your roster and add somebody who's still out there on it. Who would you add? Who would you take off? Who would you add to the roster? Start with Hammer.
You put me on the spot.
You finishing last.
No. Southside Hammer's finishing first.
You finishing last.
Best point guard in NBA history.
Last.
Got the logo. Got Larry Bird in his prime. Tim Duncan, Kareem in his prime. KG off the bench.
They were sweeping up the finish line by the time you crossed it.
He'll whoop you like the Bulls whooped the Pistons in 1989.
Here we go.
I'd say from a fluidity standpoint, maybe D-Wade for Garnett.
Okay.
Because if you look at 6-man as far as bringing the energy off the bench, I think D-Wade will be able to bring, as far as the flexibility of a point guard as well as a 2-guard and bring energy, especially you're talking D-Wade in his prime, could jump out the building, as well as a great passer, just a great all-around player. So that's where I'd go at the 6-man spot. But my starting 5 is the best by far. So
my Lord, wait a minute,
by far.
Well, they're the best of the worst.
Michael Jordan, Will Chamberlain,
Kareem better than Will.
They are the best of
Kareem
the worst.
better than
I
Will.
told you.
You got some lateral movement challenges, but you got some cats who can play. So I'm not going. We not allowed.
I don't want to hate on him.
We talking about prime. We're not talking about.
His team is not true. Going to get
all right, Darnell.
We need to do some things on NBA 2K. Can we do a simulation as far as those players? Or
we might figure something out because we got a lot of talk going on here.
Video games. I bet you my team will win. Team will crush you all.
We got a lot of. All right, Darnell.
Hammer you all. That's hammer you all. Hammer.
All right, Darnell. Who would you add? Who would you take off?
Man, I think my team is solid. Because the thing is, the only change I wouldn't make because the move I made was strategic because I knew I'd have to run into Hank's team, which is he has a huge team. So on my team, I have to have a big guard. Personally, that's why I went with Penny. But if we're going with the St. Cecilia thing, I would have the only thing I would have added would be like a Kyrie Irving or Damian Lillard, like one of those guards that are going to put up buckets and put on the show for the crowd. But on top of that, we already are a very well balanced team that we can get up and down, score with the best of them. So I'm pretty confident in my team.
All right, Hank.
You know what? A name hit me as soon as we went off the air last week. And my 6th man, if I'm just want to let everybody know, I picked Clyde Drexler. Okay, that's my 6th man. Because you took the 6th man I wanted, D, just beforehand. But the name that popped into my head, because we are big down low, but to get y'all out the paint, if I had to make one pick, if I took off Clyde Drexler, I'd put in Reggie Miller.
Oh, that would have been a good pick with that team.
Yes, I would put in that. So if I had to make that one change, I would change out Clyde Drexler for Reggie Miller. And then that gives me my outside pop. And now you can't touch us inside or out with that.
That's a good one. I think if I had to make one change, if I were to do it, I love my team. I think my team is versatile, underrated. It's scrappy. It's tough. It's got it can in the starting lineup they can change and switch. I love that team. This team and it's the kind of team you would figure out will show up in Detroit. You know they're gonna be tough. They're gonna get after you. You know, Akeem might be even if it's Ramadan, he's still gonna do his thing because he's still different. He gonna still make it happen there. So and I think Dream is underrated as a great player. I think he's unstoppable. I think he would give all these folks problems. But if I had to do one thing, I would probably switch out Barkley and bring in Anthony Davis. And what that would do is give me a big
that's a good one.
Handle. And he and Olajuwon could run a screen roll if I needed it. You know,
when he's available.
But that's all right.
When he's available
for them 3 days.
When
he'll be available for them 3 days. He'll be available for them 3 days. He'll be
probably hurt for 3 days.
Whatever them days are, he's gonna be available. You know that.
People getting hurt and
he'll be hurt like he always been.
You talking about getting hurt and the only finals that your point guard has played in, he was injured.
Man, but we talking about prime.
Won his ring in 71.
AD's been hurt his whole career. AD's been hurt his whole career. Come on.
I'm gonna say right now, but for this one, he's healthy and he's going. We got his vitamin and all the milk he can drink. He killing you on. That would be a scary lineup with AD and Olajuwon.
The history doesn't show that. History shows he's going to get hurt on day 2.
He still would kill it.
The way y'all talk about.
You know that. You know that.
The way y'all talk about. Okay.
Now you're praying. Now you're praying.
No, I'm not praying because I got love for him from Shy. He's from Shy, but I got love for him. But he needs to get more toughness, though. He needs to get more toughness.
Oh my goodness.
He's a
I got enough toughness. But I'm telling you now, if you got AD, I got AD, I got LeBron, I got Pippen, I got that. You locking y'all down. AD can switch off on any of your guards.
Wait a minute, AD is from Chicago. Why you always hating on the Chicago guys?
He's a Chicago guy. That's what I'm saying. I understand. It's a windy city thing.
Why you hating on Chicago?
This what they shoot their own. They shoot their own in Chicago. They shoot their own in Chicago right now. What's going on?
In Wisconsin, they're having a thing you should watch tonight. Give a plug for it. 86, Barkley against Cummings. So I love me some Terry Cummings.
I'm gonna say this.
That was a
AD is a problem. If I put him with Olajuwon,
he is a problem when he's healthy. Yeah,
and he's gonna be healthy for those days. If I'm coaching,
but now a problem when
he's
you're on the
healthy.
bench.
And I got Curry and Zeke, best ball handlers out of all of these folks out here. Come on, man. Y'all, Zeke, and even if he sprained his ankle, he's still gonna hit you for 25. That's all we doing down here. They play through pain. And you think Zeke gonna let AD sit out? Zeke is the captain of this team. You know, that's the bad boys. We in Detroit too. He gonna rise up, man.
And that's another
generational clash. Generational clash.
He never really.
Isaiah was a beast, but Isaiah played with what was it? Didn't he get? He broke his was a wrist and it had fused, right?
Yeah.
It had arthritis because of that.
That's not
These
like
cats
that.
wouldn't do that now. AD wouldn't do that now. He would sit down. He would go. I mean,
it's called mentorship. It's the stuff you don't do.
He had the nerve to go to a Packer game when
it's
he was
called mentorship.
Hurt.
It's guidance. This is how we bring him along.
He was hurt.
We're going to bring him along like we brought along Robin and Sally. We're going to do what we do to allow the Bulls to go 3-peat. We raised Robin so y'all could use him. We taught Robin how to play so he could play for y'all. We raised them for y'all. We raised them, so we're going to raise them the same way.
Man. He was at Lambeau when he was supposed to be hurt.
I'm trying not to be like Hammer and say, like Hank and say, you're going to lose. But you might going to make me do this. Or whatever I'm doing. Try to get my hand right in the camera. You're going to lose.
I'm going to win.
Like I said, I don't know who's going to finish first. But I do know who's going to finish
Southside Hammers. Southside Hammers. Like Obama finished first, we finished first.
He drafted his team like they play on the outside courts.
We ain't Jerry
in Chicago,
Ford.
like the wind is blowing.
We ain't Jerry Ford finished second. We
drafted like he was on the
Barack
West Side
Obama.
court.
We ain't Jerry Ford.
We in a hot gym in Detroit.
Yeah.
Jerry Ford.
Jerry Ford and Obama.
Y'all gonna be playing that pre-shot.
Mitt Romney, another Michigan loser.
Y'all gonna be winning games 23-14.
I know. The only thing y'all gonna win is the shortest shorts contest.
No, we gonna win.
You gonna look like y'all got draws on. You gonna look like y'all got some draws on. That's what y'all look like. Okay. All right. That's it for the open mic. It's hot right now. We're going to go into the cipher, y'all.
Y'all vote. Make sure y'all vote.
Make sure you vote, y'all.
Southside Hammers.
All right. You know the black and yellow. To the cipher. Let the games begin. The world of sports is ramping up, y'all. Here we go. So we got a lot of movement in the world of sports. Starting with the NBA. Right now, it looks like the thought on the table from all reports is that the NBA is looking at Disney as a place to do it. It might make sense. We got feedback coming out from the NFL a little bit about where they're going in their movement. College football, they're in plans like Ohio State trying to figure out how to get a plan where they get 20,000 fans in the arena. In terms of that, let me think about it. If you could be kind of a leader for any one of these efforts. You know, I was going to say commissioner, but any one of these efforts, because all these things are different leagues across sports. What sport would you want to lead, and what plan would you have for that sport? If you had a chance to say, okay, I'm going to be the leader of this sport coming out, and I have to come up with a plan, Is there a sport that you would say, I would love to be the commissioner trying to figure out how to make this happen, or the person leading in this sport trying to make this thing happen for the fans? What sport would it be? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Definitely
right,
NFL.
Okay.
Because NFL has shown already with the draft that they know about showmanship. And also, if you look at the other leagues, as far as baseball is arguing about the money, NBA is arguing about who's going to be in the bubble, what time. This is a not for long league. You know, it's, again, the acronym stands for not just NFL, but not for long. So these cats want a ball. And these are, like I said, you have literally human car crashes on the field every day. So these are cats who are going to, you know, push the envelope, and also have the safety protocols to do so. But I think that they're going to have more of an incentive to get on the football field compared to these other sports because of the fact that it's a short lifespan. So I think that as far as I trust Goodell, I trust as far as what they'll do as far as particular protocols because of the talent involved. You already see one of the top player is already involved with a non-NFL event today, doing poorly at it, but you're a Michigan guy, you know, Brady, but I think that's where, but, you know, I'll put baseball, the shenanigans over Blake Snell, just embarrassing baseball. Like, he should be suspended for what he said. I mean, that's just nonsensical. And then, again, like I said, some of these people talking about they can't play without fans. Well, you might not get paid. So, so yeah, the NFL is a place I would love to do it because, again, I think that the players are going to be more apt to play and be risk because it's a risky sport. I mean, it's a contact sport. So, in a world where non-contact is king now, I think that clearly the NFL players will do that.
All right. Hank, what sport would you work with?
Well, you know, Blake's, notwithstanding, I think I would go with baseball. And the reason being is because you have right now in baseball an opportunity. First of all, it being an outside sport, two things is in baseball advantage. Number one, it is an outdoor sport. But number two is it's pretty much non-contact. Okay, and in an environment in which we're talking about trying to keep the players healthy, okay, and not having any of the real issue at hand here being addressed, a vaccine and that sort of thing, and trying to go forward. What's the best way of going forward with this? Well, baseball really, if they would just listen and pay attention, has an opportunity to get some league in and some decent play in, because it's not contact. You don't have blood or any sort of fluids potentially mixing as you would in a football game, okay? But in the same token, you can kind of quarantine a league. You can kind of quarantine leagues in states and still play and do this the right way, and test. And you have the season right now where you have the weather, and you can play this game without fans right now. Okay, baseball is on the precipice of being able to really have exclusivity if they do this right. Why? Because nobody else has started. Baseball can figure out a way to get this going and have exclusivity to their sport because people are looking to watch anything. And the NBA is still trying to figure it out. And their season was supposed to start. They've had plenty of time to get going. If I'm the commissioner, the one thing I'm going to do is get somebody playing ball within the next month. I don't care if it's just two teams in an exhibition, you know, to try to get folks going, and then continue to try to figure out what makes sense to try to get, you know, even a partial season in place. They've had things in baseball that could have helped them out, like when they had the strike season and they had to have the first half winners play the second half winners in a playoff format. Baseball has got things in their past that could help them right now to get through these uncertain times. And if I'm the commissioner, I would really rely upon that to try to help me go forward.
All right, Darnell.
So I could go two different ways with this, but I'm going with basketball for a different reason, because if I'm the commissioner of the NBA, this is a time for opportunity for me because we can try out things in this new kind of schedule that can possibly move our sport forward. So you got the opportunity, since everybody's going to be in the same place, there's no excuses for travel. We could potentially try out, you know how we've been lamenting the imbalances between the two conferences, like the Western Conference has always been stronger than the Eastern Conference for the last 10 to 15 years. But now you can try to test out the whole 16 versus 1 sort of format where you could you can go interconference seating, and also you could also try out the new schedule. Like we could get away from being on the same schedule as football and start to encroach on baseball for 1 point, because we can try to move the schedule to where we can begin the calendar, the first game on Christmas Day. We can open it on Christmas Day, and we can end the season in August. And maybe that can help eliminate competition because the NFL obviously has more viewership than the MLB does. So I think we'll be in a better position for them than that of MLB and NFL. But also NFL, you can make an argument for NFL as well, because we have they would have the opportunity to sit back and watch and see what the MLB does and see what the NBA does and kind of take ideas from them as to how they deal with protecting their players as far as safety goes, as far as what to do if a player gets sick, and those kind of things. So I think there's advantages to both of those two, but I'm going with the NBA.
Yeah, I think all of y'all gave some really good points. And, if I were thinking about an individual maybe sport, I would probably say I think boxing has a really good opportunity to do some things. But speaking with the team sport.
I was thinking about team sports.
Yeah, team sport. Thinking about the team sport environment. I would say the NBA with baseball being very close, but I think Carl made some really good points about the ability to negotiate with players to get where you needed to go. I think football probably has an environment where the conversations can be different in terms of what the needs are for the players. And I think you made some good points about it. But I think baseball already has a roadmap with what's happening in Korea. So it's not like they need to necessarily they have a roadmap that's different than I think some of the other leagues that would allow them to do it. They just have to think about where they want to do it. If they're going to do it in Arizona, create a bubble. But I think the problem they have is that they have the strongest union, which is causing some of the problems that they have right now. So having said all that, I go basketball. And think about basketball, I also think that even though it's crazy to say the NFL, I think Hamp was right on it, has just kind of been, I think, first to this, other than the UFC, in terms of not breaking the schedule, staying with, understanding how to be creative, the draft and everything else. I think the NBA can close that gap pretty quickly. But I also think they have some creative social media platforms to build on Darnell's thing. I think a lot could be done with interaction between fans in the sport electronically. I mean, you look at some of these, we've seen movies where fans are watching virtually and you're getting a sense of the approval by how loud the crowd goes, that there's interactions that would raise the crowd interaction electronically. I think the NFL would be open to that kind of innovation where they could maybe get to a point where they maybe have some partial crowd spacing at some point, or maybe it's empty arenas, but crowds are very interactive with the environment in a way that which players could feel it. And I think that, partnering with Disney, partnering with ESPN and other folks, I could see a much more innovative, interactive fan experience in that players can maybe feel. So there's open to that kind of innovation. Plus you partner with Disney. So I think the NBA probably, even though I think it's behind NFL right now, could close the gap because players are ready to come back. I don't think they're going to run into the kind of issues that baseball's running with, but I also think they could turn the corner much easier than football, because football has some other layers. You got bigger teams, you got a lot of other things you got to figure out, even though I think the players are probably ready. I think there's a lot of other pieces you have to figure out when you talk about the size of the roster, how the game is played, what you need on the in the environment to run the game. I think the NBA would be the place that I would go. But y'all made some excellent points, as I were not surprised that y'all were able to do. I want to turn just a little bit to this. You know, you hear Ohio State is talking about the number of campuses. First of all, what they're doing, the private started this, is shifting the fall academic year from middle of August to having a semester in right before Thanksgiving, which aligns a lot with kind of what you would call the regular season for college football prior to a bowl season. Then basically schools would be shut down until a little bit after the first of the year. They think that's going to be the high time for the second wave of the virus. So you're getting students off of campus. On these campuses, they're probably not going to do many large lectures, but they'll be doing small classes with physical distancing. And part of it is many of the presidents and chancellors know it's hard to activate football if you don't have some sense of some in-person curricular environment. So you saw it start with Notre Dame. There's other privates. I know Syracuse is going this route. Other privates are doing it now. You have some publics doing it. Now you got this other layer of, you know, when we're talking about not playing in front of fans, now you got schools like Ohio State trying to figure out how to get 20,000 fans, you know, and spread people out in doing this. How y'all been feeling about this conversation, things that y'all been hearing about college football? How has this, you know, added another layer to the conversation? This has been an interesting conversation. Like, it's unpacking all the things that we've talked about on RSG is playing itself out. The motivations for doing some of these things are playing themselves out right now. Hank, I see you shaking your head. You know, when you're hearing all this stuff, what's been your response to what you're hearing about college football?
Oh my God. You know, I fear that a lot of these people are putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
And it really concerns me that, you know, we want these sports so bad, but we know we can't conduct them without revenue. The only way you can have revenue is to bring people in. Now, if you bring in people in, you're talking about 20,000 people. You know, you got some venues that say you can't have no more than 10. We fail to understand in this country, I don't know what it is, that we can't understand that this is a health crisis. Okay, we're already at 100,000 people dead. Okay, and we just and DeVon, you started the show talking about a mutual friend of ours that lost his battle to this thing. You know, rest in peace, Bud. And here's the thing that's really bothering me about this whole thing is that if we want any sort of sense of normalcy, there's going to have to be a level of patience, and it just cannot be an economic, you know, push. I'm not going anywhere, and if I got my son, who I believe is going to has got the God-given gift that could be a NFL player, potential NFL player, I'm not going to risk his health so Ohio State can make money. Okay, and I know he can play. Here's the thing. This is the world in which we live in right now. What scares me about this is a sport that I absolutely love, college football, or any of these other sports. Go out there crazy, try to play, think they're going to have what looked like last fall, and now all of a sudden it becomes even a more tragic situation. I just really feel like no one is asking the question that let's get 20,000 people in. Let's see if we can't do this. What happens if people get sick? What happens if it's a second wave? And we have exacerbated the second wave because we have put this way out in front. We're not getting anything. And see, right now, as we are talking on this show today, it's time to get serious. We are nowhere near talking about putting 20,000 people in stands, much less putting young 18 to 22-year-old young men on a football field to compete for a university to make money, which we haven't even discussed whether they should get compensated or not. This thing really bothers me. The wrong conversations are being had right now. Okay, we need to stop and quit answering question 25 before we answer questions 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that's where I think we're at with this. And that, to me, right now, it's troubling. That's why I'm shaking my head, because it's troubling. You've gone from wanting to put 20,000 people at Ohio Stadium, and there's not a vaccine anywhere. And the United States is as of today, the day before Memorial Day, is approaching 100,000 deaths to this thing with no answers. It's not right.
Well said, Hank. You are, and the thing about I would say about it is that you've also been the person who said, "Look, as much as you talked about the death, you also, you've been the one who's framed. We also have to understand the death rate and who's living, and you've been really helping us doing this. So for us to really hear this position from you says a lot, and and you spend a lot of time around." Hospitals and hospital administration. You've been in these meetings, so it means a lot from what you said. Darnell, I know you work in a hospital setting and you see this stuff up front, and are well connected. We all know what's happening on the front lines. That's different in these policy discussions that folks are having about, like, people who are living right on the front lines, who are dealing with this day to day and able to provide us with feedback. So thank you for that. Hammer, I know you in that policy space. I know you've been in UW, you've been in the higher ed administrative policy space. You're now in the governmental side of policy space. You're a sports fan. You roots in Chicago. So I think you bring a perspective as well to this. What's your reaction to when you hear this kind of conversation happening? And you've been in those executive meetings where folks have to think through these kinds of issues.
I hate to call out someone as accomplished as Brother Smith, especially because he's a fellow brother, but it's nonsensical his proposal, because it's not being in the real world, DeVon, because of the bottom line of enforcement is how are you going to enforce 20,000 people in Columbus
who've been drinking,
to social distancing, masks, other protocols, gloves, hand sanitizer. It's insane. When I saw his statement, clearly he looks like a puppet of a big interest in. Really shows again how I lost respect for him during the Urban Meyer shenanigans, as well as other things. Was someone who I respect, and it was in the pinnacle of sports, who's really clowning himself on an international level to think that we're going to bring 20,000 people into Ohio State safely and not have a serious outbreak. And then also you look at the fact of, let's talk about, again, the contrast of their biggest rival, Michigan. President Schlissel has said flat out that we are not having football until we have normalcy of students on campus. So, right, I know you would say amen, brother. So if you look at that dichotomy of President Schlissel and Athletic Director Smith, he looks like a buffoon saying this. And he ought to be ashamed of himself, except for the fact that he has some major interests who are saying, Gene, we have to do something. We're going to lose a lot of money. Yeah, we're going to lose a lot of lives related to this. And that's where you look at this policy debate. You talk about breaking down policy. Yeah. It's been sad to see how the policy debate has been where we value life versus profits. Yeah. And what we need to do and what's happening right now is that we're slowly phasing in, trying to rephase in the economy to make sure that we have that balance of protection and safety. But I mean, he just puts out a nonsensical number out there without protocols as far as how to do it. I mean, if you have 20,000 people in the stadium, how many people are you going to need to enforce social distancing or physical distancing guidelines? How are you going to be able to enforce the cleanliness? I'll be blunt with you. I have not been to a public bathroom since the pandemic hit. I've been in a bathroom in my office building because there are very few people there because I work intermittently in the office, but I would not go to, let's break down Camp Randall. I would not go to a public bathroom at Camp Randall. And a perfect example, even before this pandemic hit, I was appalled, not to call out my fellow Wisconsinites, but people would go in the bathroom, not even wash their hands.
That's right. that was maybe half of it. That's right. I would wash my hands just basically because of cleanliness, but is that going to, and you look at the people, like I said,
I told you the neighborhood I live in, the Region neighborhood, a gorgeous neighborhood, but young people as well as the young people do not take this seriously. They don't have masks on. They don't social distance. They really just do not care for fellow man. They're in their self-absorbedness so much as Generation Z that it just bothers me about these are going to be the people leading our country in the future. So, yeah, again, it just makes no sense. I mean, you have President Schlissel saying we can't have students, even like Schwarbeck said the same thing in Notre Dame. So, yeah, they have 20,000 makes no sense. Maybe 5,000, yeah. But again, I just was very disappointed in Brother Gene Smith. I know there's a lot of pressures and there are a lot of lives on the line as far as economically. You know, we look at the athletic department here in Wisconsin, a lot of hurt as far as people being have to go on unemployment and have their quality of lives. But if you don't have a life, that's worse than having a standard, a lower standard quality of life. And so it's going to be interesting what happens, especially down south, because if Gene Smith is talking this, you know, SEC, they're already trying to open up. You know, it's just going to.
And I think you hit a point. I think Ohio State is the one Big Ten school that responds to SEC movement. It's going to be clear that the SEC going to do what they're going to do. And I think Ohio State's been the one program trying to mirror that. And I think that was a response to it. It was going to be clear that SEC schools are not only going to try to open, they're trying to find a way to have fans. Like if we talk about our commissioner discussion or what do you want to lead, I would lead the SEC because they're going to do whatever you want to do. Fans going to do whatever you want to do. They're not thinking about all the issues you just named out, Hammer. None of them.
No,
are thinking about, and I think Ohio State is the one school that looks over the fence and watches what they do, and tries to keep up with the Joneses as a way to keep position themselves to be the one school from the Big Ten who can consistently make that run, right? And so it's in constant battle with athletes. It's part of the recruitment trail, all the pressures, and it in many ways on the football side mirrors that. So I think you hit some really important points. You know, we got the young in here, Darnell. You know, you closer to that generation. You're not quite that generation, but you're close to that generation that Hammer's talking about. So your friends running out there, running around with no mask, hugging each other, just not thinking about anything at all. But you seem to have a little bit of wisdom, or your dad gonna hit you across the head. So I want to know what you think. And you Ohio State fan, which is blasphemy.
I'm a fan of greatness. I'm a fan.
You're a fan of greatness. You probably that generation that just follows players. Y'all don't follow.
You're right about
that. One
thing
I talk about Hammer. Hammer argued to the death to the Bulls. Through
even now,
he'll be with that. Y'all be moving with players. You know, Mike might have gone to the Wizards, but Hammer's fucking them Bulls
all day. And love, not to go off tangent, but love what Reinsdorf did with the VP and the GM, the brothers especially. We're gonna be back in Chicago. So
there you go. So Darnell, what's your thoughts as you hear this landscape shifting in college sports?
Well, I can see both sides, to be honest with you. And I think Hammer brought up an excellent point when he was talking about the enforcement of this idea. Like, how do you enforce? I personally can see what Gene Smith was trying to say and what he's trying to come up with. He's like, okay, I'm gonna have 20. Let's try to reduce it so we can recruit some money out of it and just space out the fans so they can be socially distant in the stands. But Hammer is absolutely correct. How do you enforce that? How many people and what kind of manpower are you going to need to enforce that and make sure everybody's in their seat, socially spaced out the way they're supposed to be? But at the same time, they're with the money that's involved, I think they're going to end up doing it because they just need the money in general. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on. You got to understand there's a lot of pressure on these ADs in this time of the coronavirus because they have to find an answer and he has to try something. So, I mean, I kind of admire the attempt of the idea, but I think We just got to see how it plays out with the details.
And when you talk about enforcement, people have to understand it's not just enforcement in the stadium. It's enforcement prior to the game outside. Meaning, if you're going to have 20,000 people who can go in, the tailgate is going to be 50. Like, who's going to stop people from gathering?
Right.
And where's the perimeter going to be cut off? Because college football, if there's anything about college football, it's true in pro and other places, but nothing like college football is really the gathering and the tailgate. And so in a lot of these stadiums are near campuses, are not too far, are much more integrated in some of these spaces. And so you might have 20,000 people going in the stadium, but you might have another 30,000 gathering. You might have TVs up. You have really, and that's where you're going to have the most challenge with this. You might not have as much challenge in the stadium part. It's everything outside the stadium, the perimeter, the city, because people are going to see that as a celebratory moment. It's in the bars. All those things are going to be part of this that people aren't thinking about. People are thinking about, well, if they figure out how to see people in the stadium, oh, we got it. No. If you've been to a game day in Madison, Ann Arbor, Columbus, it's the city. It's Dane County. It's Washtenaw County. Like, they are all impacted because it ripples throughout that community. And that means you got everybody on front during that day.
And see, and you just made a valid point there, DeVon, and that is the fact that it's not just the 20,000 people in the stands. It's the people who have to take care of the people that are in the stands. And then you start talking about what happens after a game. You know, people who have to, the now essential employees, if you will, that's taking care of the stadium, that's taking care of the city, the law enforcement. You know what I mean? All of the stuff that goes into it. If you're talking about 20,000 people, you might as well be talking about 50. You might as well be talking about 75, because those that's watching the game they're not standing alone. So
and they're not sober.
And they're not sober. You know, and so while it sounds good from an economic standpoint, again, what we just, you know, I would love, you know, in my world, the vaccine is developed tomorrow, and we go back to our regular scheduled program. It's simply not that way. And while we keep on trying to accentuate the positive, the fact is more and more people are getting sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker because they're starting to defy, you know, the rules out there. And now people wants to get back to work and do all these other things. And this thing, and you know, it's been a poor job of taking care of the health crisis. It's been a poor job of taking care of the health crisis while the health crisis is being swept under the rug while it's still there and prevalent and strong, to try to now spend time on the economic crisis. And as much as we love sports, the one thing that I'm afraid of is we get 2 games, 3 games into the season and they got to shut it down. Yep. And that's the thing that really, and see, that would be, to me, more gut-wrenching than what we're dealing with right now. Because,
I think one of the things you hit on there, I think one of the issues that's different than the NFL is that the economic model for most of these schools requires so much more on the gate than I think people anticipated, or other. So people talk about the TV dollars, and that varies about 25% of the budget. It's all these other things that contribute to it, and the gate plays an important role. If that does play an important role, you know, I would say, why not have spring football? Because all of the timelines tell us, at least with some of the stuff that we're hearing, that we could have a vaccine somewhere by, you know, December, January, with possible rollout. And we'll be much farther along with our strategy around care and tracking, that you could play, rather than having spring ball, you would have a spring season. And you still would have it within the budget year. And you might have a product where you could have people actually in the stadiums, and you're doing it in the spring, which could be a fun thing to be happening in that spring season. And then you still, these are young folks. You still have time off and can come back with another fall. You still got time to come back to your normal fall. It's kind of a tight tournament, but it's not that tight because these kids play spring ball anyway. So, I think there's ways that if they thought about, you got to talk about, scheduling in stadiums and things like that. But I'm sure, the big house is going to be the big house for Michigan. Camp Randall's going to be set aside for Wisconsin football. I think you could get away with doing that it's a little bit out, but it's a timeline that's realistic. And you could, you allow for student athletes to get back into school because their institutions are probably going to have some type of hybrid. So you at least got some justification of students getting back in. Institutions have gotten their structure back together. So they've been able to even, because people got to understand, to reopen a school like Ohio State to get everybody back on campus, or Michigan or Wisconsin, that takes time. People just don't show up at work and everything functions. They got physical plant stuff to do. They got stuff that was supposed to happen over the summer months to get ready. There's a lot. There's getting a whole bunch of systems in place. So, but if they went for a spring, I think that could be a realistic timeline looking at what we are hearing about vaccines and possible things. It would make the spring, I think, Hank, you said this, the spring could be, even though we would be hurting, that would be the biggest spring ever.
Yes.
Talking about basketball.
No, not really, because you're not looking at one factor. And I saw this on Marcus Spears talking about that. If it's spring football, a lot of the top prospects aren't going to play. Let's be real about it.
Well, that's okay.
No, let's be real.
You have to live with that.
If you're Trevor Lawrence, you don't play spring ball. Come on.
I think they play. If they
they're
ever see
not
you
gonna
on
play.
tape, Trevor Lawrence is playing.
Their agent not gonna
If your family member was a top,
we got to live with that. Then I'm okay with that. Then I'm okay with that. Bye, Trevor. I'm okay with that. We can't build policies on. We can't build policies. You got to let it go. You got to let it go. Yes, you can. That goes back into your argument. What is it about? And if that means we don't get Trevor Lawrence, we got another kid after Trevor. We got the next Trevor Lawrence.
They've been building campaigns on the Trevor Lawrences and
I'm okay with that. But I'm gonna tell you right now, the great thing about college sports is there's always a next story.
That's true, but
there's always another story
right now where you have a guy who's been Trevor Lawrence has been the national champion game. Two straight years.
You know that if you're talking about spring ball, there's going to be some policies and procedures in place to make sure that those guys play their junior year. I guarantee you that.
They're going to skip the
NFL draft will probably get pushed off.
Just like these brothers are skipping college. It's like these brothers in the NBA are skipping college. They're going to skip it.
But if I'm Trevor Lawrence, under this scenario of going, I'm not playing.
I'm staying in Lawrenceville, Georgia, and I'm working out. And I'm getting ready to be the first pick.
I'm not playing in the fall if that's the issue. First round,
I am playing the fall, but
I'm not playing anyway. So Trevor Lawrence might not play anyway. If he's smart, under this kind of raggedy circumstance, if I'm advising them, like, no, don't get out there for that. They don't look like they got their act together. That's worse than the fall. I wouldn't have them play in the fall.
No, they got unfinished business, man.
It's a business, but it's a business that has a fiscal year. And the fiscal year for don't end until June. So as long as they win money, that's what it's about. The fiscal year for all these folks is June 30th. As long
the backup quarterback for Clemson's not going to give you
Chase
Bright.
But Clemson fans but see the thing about it, Clemson fans are still going to show up.
They will show up. No
That's
question.
what matters.
Alabama shows up 80,000
Michigan
for the spring
fans
game.
show up. It's better.
I'm talking about a national level.
I'm saying
talking about a national level.
Better than 20,000 people showing up at Ohio State and then Michigan having none.
You're being too narrow in your analysis.
You got 100,000 in Michigan.
The national level,
80.
Ron.
But it's about the fans showing up. They're going to show up no matter what. That's the money. They're going to show up whether he play or not. That's the piece. It ain't Trevor. They going to show up.
It's TV too, not just.
I'll put $100 down right now. If they did that and open them gates up, damn stadiums are full. And Trevor sitting on the sidelines, he'll be interviewing with ESPN like I wish I could, and Death Valley gonna be packed. And you gonna see them touching the rock on their way in. The head's gonna be packed. It's gonna be packed, and that's what matters. It'd be his loss.
It's star power and as well
as
fans. You're gonna have as many fans.
The college game.
If a no-name quarterback, I don't know who's the backup for Clemson, but
they show up no matter what.
Are you telling me that they're not going to show up because Trevor Lawrence ain't playing, I strongly disagree.
Less will show up. Less will show up.
They won't.
I'm not saying
No,
they're not going to show up.
Especially down
I said
south.
less.
You lost your mind.
Not down south.
Less will show up. Less will show up.
They show up.
They love football so much, they show up if you was quarterback and hammered. They don't even know you.
Michigan Stadium.
80,000 come see.
Michigan Stadium was loaded, 110,000 strong. You know who the quarterback was? Stephen Threet. I'm telling you right now, they're going to show up. Okay.
I mean, they were showing up at Camp Randall when they wasn't winning. They go, man. They don't care who quarterbacking. They care about their team playing. You don't listen to Paul Feinbaum. You don't listen to enough of that to know that the folks show up for whoever's on the field.
There's difference between the South and also it's also political differences with this. It's gonna be interesting to see how fanatic fans are in parts of the country as far as West.
Look at Hammer. They sell bars in Wisconsin. They packed. If these folks gonna show up at some bars in Wisconsin, you don't think they're gonna show up at Camp Randall?
And then as Hank adeptly said, if you have a serious outbreak, it's gonna be shut down.
I agree with you.
Again,
no, you're right.
But we seen it spike, and they still out there. They still out there drinking. Wasn't me.
Don't get it twisted. If they open it up, they coming. Okay.
Yes.
If they open it up, they are coming. I don't care. Like I said, if I'm quarterback and throwing on my left hand and it's broke, they coming because they gonna show up. This is the problem. This is the problem with society right now.
That's why I said the spring.
This is why. It's a health crisis because people are not going to do nothing. They're going to show up. If they say it's football, they coming. They're going to tailgate, just like you said in Wisconsin, Hammer. You there.
I'm there. I'm 15-minute walk, and I tell you right now, I would not go to a game.
But I'm saying is, Hammer, you missing my point.
I know you would, but
my timeline, y'all missed my point. My timeline is built on what the hell people say. Look, we be producing 1 million vaccines a month by that point. That's a different scenario because that's not just about having refined the way that we're doing the care in emergency to work up line. That's not just about testing. That's what they're saying. We're gonna have vaccines in play. That's what
you think everybody's gonna take a vaccine, DeVon, especially with the divide we have right now without a vaccine. Come on.
But the thing about it is, that's a different world. That's a different world with vaccines, everything in play. You still got some individuals, but you have a lot of individuals who might not even take it. You're gonna have. But I'm saying,
you got a lot of people in our community not gonna take it because they're gonna have. They're gonna think about Tuskegee.
How's that gonna be different in the fall? But now you got more things.
Tuskegee and think about how, and also
understand that. But that's the work you got to do.
You
can't come to the stadium if you have. You might not come to the stadium unless you got proof.
If I'm, you
can't come to the stadium unless you got proof.
If I'm the 15th player on the Milwaukee Bucks, I have a better chance to get a test than the average person in this country. That's
but I'm saying, but you're talking about now. At that point, that's not the reality.
That's speculative, DeVon. I mean, I've heard everything from spring to 3 years.
That's not the reality. That's not the reality.
We don't know what the reality is. That's right now.
That's a much different reality for us. If you're talking about the spring, you can plan for that because you're working with your scientists. You're not working on policy.
And the flu has vaccines. You think this vaccine is going to be 100% perfect?
But I'm saying,
the virus is already mutating.
It's a different reality.
The virus is already mutating where a vaccine is going to be very, very complex.
They're not going to fill them standing up for 2 years? That's what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that.
If you
I already said that some fans, yes, 5,000.
But what I'm telling you now,
maybe
I'm going to tell you right
20,000.
now, if you have vaccines, and the only way you can get into a stadium is if you have shown that you have taken the vaccine.
How you going to enforce that? How you going to enforce that, DeVon?
You're not going to go in because it's an operation. They might have a way to do that. I'm just trying to tell you, there's going to be a reality. That's a much different kind of planning cycle. In the spring, there's much more assurance you got about the health stuff in the spring. Your first argument was they ain't gonna show up because Trevor ain't playing. I don't agree with that. Fans are fans of teams. They
Justin not playing
so
too.
Now you pivot into something else, and I'm telling you right now, all your factors might be true, but you got many more variables on your side doing it in the spring than you got trying to do this foolishness in the fall. where you don't even have a percentage of those variables on your side.
But DeVon, let's talk. I mean, I'm not trying to put Hank and Darnell on the spot, but don't make the vaccine like this. It's going to be a magic panacea. Come on now.
But
a vaccine. No, let me finish. A vaccine will have its issues in the onset as well. Okay, well,
but we still go out.
Acknowledge that.
But we still go out.
Then don't tell me that
but we still
when
go
you
out.
have a vaccine
you already see the people who've had it that they are having resistance so far against getting it again because they produce the antibodies.
And then you see things in South Korea and China where there are people who've gotten it twice.
But what I'm saying is there's going to be an operational normalcy that you're going to have to go. That is going to be a percentage of chance in life.
There's going to be an operational normalcy when we have basically local rules controlling, as Hank said, a health crisis right now. We literally have rules for every community, every county. It's a free-for-all right now because of the lack. This is not a political statement, but
I'm going to tell you that. All I'm saying to you right now that those factors are all at play. But if you told people we're going to start the season in the spring and you got this kind of time to get everybody prepared for it, you got all those things you're saying. I think it has a better chance of coming off in the spring than it is for them trying to do something in the fall. I think they can plan with much more assurance right now. And yeah, there's going to be some hiccups, but those are hiccups they can see versus things they can't see right now. If that were me, if you're going to say you got to do something before.
We're learning something about this virus DeVon, first the virus came out was.
But I'm getting away from that.
First the virus is supposed to be elderly people with health problems, right? Then now we have a virus. Now we have challenges where young kids are getting inflammatory disease from.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
They're all about this virus.
Hold up. I'm not disagreeing with you. You're thinking rational, Hammer. I just started with that. You and I are on the same side of this. You are thinking rational. I'm talking about sports. That's why they call them fanatics. Is an irrational space. And
DeVon, the reason why, again,
let me finish my point.
They will be irrational. I'll give perfect. You probably know I'm a lawyer as well. You know that. They can be. Let me finish. They can be irrational initially, but I'll give you a perfect example. When they tried to open up the courtrooms like it was normal, people were coming to courtrooms and people were literally passing out in the courtrooms because of the fact that they were losing their breath. People literally falling out and seizing because of the fact that they didn't realize how powerful this virus is. You look at also the fact how the virus transmits in a restaurant.
Hold it. I understand what you're saying.
So again, you can have the irrational people come in spring, but now there's a second wave. You think people are going to rise up and beat.
But I'm gonna tell you right now, I would bet $1,000. I put enough money down here right now.
Well,
you know I can't bet.
I'm in Wisconsin right now. I ain't betting. So
but I would put $1,000 down. I put $1,000 down.
I get you your best beer. It won't be a Corona. I get you your best beer. It won't be a Corona.
No, this is, I ain't got that kind of money, but I know I'm ready to take $2,000. I would bet because that extra $1,000, I have $2,000 work with. I'll work with it.
Let's not bet money. Let's just make it. I don't drink. I'll give you your beer and then give me.
If you told all these leaders and you gave them all the data, and Hank, the chancellor at Michigan getting all this. They got my man, Dr.
And what did he say? He said we're not having student athletes until we have students.
You're talking too rational. These people ain't rational. I'm gonna tell you right now. Your budget planning line is June 30th. We have a scenario where we're gonna buffer against what that fall might look like. They're gonna make it happen, man. We're gonna wait and see.
They better have the protocols. I'm not confident. I see right now.
But I got confidence they'll figure out how to pull it off. If I told them you got to do it in spring, they'll make it happen. And they know it's going to reduce the budget impact. They're going to figure out how to make it happen. It's much more so than they can in the fall. But having said that, hey, man,
great conversation. Yeah, sorry.
Drop the mic with brother. We'll let Hank drop the mic. I don't know what you're gonna drop the mic.
I thought y'all had did it already.
We already dropped the mic, man. We gotta go. We're gonna let you drop the mic, man. This has been one of the craziest ones of all times. We're gonna hand this over to the Hammer. Not the Hammer, to Hank. I'm done with Hammer. We're gonna hand it over to Hank to drop the mic.
Listen, guys, great conversation. And I think both of you make valid sense, valid points. Very much so. Very much so. But what I want to really focus in on, we've been talking about this a lot. Tomorrow is Memorial Day. Okay, this is Memorial Day weekend. The weather is finally broke out here in the Midwest. It's beautiful outside. It's hot outside. We're used to probably getting the grills going and getting our parties going. But tomorrow, I think, is going to be one of the first times when we take Memorial Day for what it really is. Okay, and that is a day of remembrance. That's a day of remembering those who have fallen in wars. I can speak personally that my father was a Korean War vet, and he passed in 2007. And I've always made it a tradition to go out to the cemetery to see him. But this year, I want you all out here to reflect very clearly on the silent war that we're all fighting right now, right here in this entire world that is really ravaging humanity, to the point where, even the conversation we had tonight has really kind of sparked some real emotion. But when we go into tomorrow, there's a lot of us that's lost some loved ones or someone that we know to this virus. And just take a moment to give them folks a little bit of time that before you get the barbecue sauce between your fingers, before you get the corn in the cob caught in your teeth, and before you get that cold one down your throat. Just take a moment, just take a quick moment and remember them families, remember them friends, remember them folks that those soldiers, that we sat next to at Michigan Stadium, that we partied with at Camp Randall, that we knew at Lincoln High School, and around the world, that we know somebody who knows somebody who lost a soldier to this invisible war. And give them a little bit of time. Raise your glass. Throw the bone up in the air. Throw the corn cob up in the air. And while you're partying and while you're having a good time, just bow your head for a minute, say a little prayer, but keep it moving. Keep it moving. Peace out.
This thing right here is for my peoples in the streets.
Yes, today.
Blog Talk Radio.
Show this one mic.
Phoenix is another place.